Hello and welcome back to
No,
Pacino's...
Thomas.
What? Oh, Howdy Roundabout.
Yeah.
Howdy Roundabout, all you shaggy goose egg boys, and welcome back to another episode of Al Pacino's Prison Scene, the podcast where we look at movies that objectively have no deeper meaning and we think about it. As always, I'm your host, Thomas Butler, and with me is my co-host, Jake Ferrier.
Get that quote out of my face!
I knew that was the quote you were going to do.
Was there another one?
I don't know.
I just go, Nacho!
When that happened in the movie, I was like, that's what he's going to say. So if you know what that movie's from, if you know what that quote is from, then you know what movie we're talking about, or you can read because you saw the title before you clicked on the episode. We are talking about Nacho Libre, but if you follow us on Twitter, you are aware that we did not tweet a video of us taking something out of a fishbowl this week, and that is because we didn't need to, because we got an email telling us that we should watch this movie. And I am not familiar with the name of the person who suggested this because I don't know him. So, Jake, tell us who said this.
It's from one of our very, very loyal shaggy goose egg boys. Me and his boy go way back. This is my friend Jared Laws. He sent us an email, very short and sweet, no subject, nothing. Just he said, well, the subject was Nacho Libre. And then the body was, this beautifully composed film needs to be officially noticed by the Pacino podcast folk. It holds symbolic messages relating to the state and the country of our people. And Jared, you're right, I think, but this is also not what I got from it. And we'll go into that. But
all right, I don't know if y'all can hear the Gamer Boy in the other room, but I really hope you can.
I don't think so. Maybe we'll just turn up the.
Well, he's making noises, so if you can hear him, Shaggy Goose Egg Boy, he's good.
Tweet us. Go hit up my boy on SoundCloud, all lowercase JDXD. He makes pretty dope tracks or like little fancy beats. So yeah, do that.
Speaking of SoundCloud,
so support the Shaggy Goose Egg Boys
and music. It's kind of a shame we haven't done this before. We have never mentioned the person who made the theme for our podcast on air.
Have we not?
No, he's always in the description. But Avery Yerlin is the name of the guy who did our theme. Thank you very much, Avery. We love you.
Shout out to our very first Shaggy Goose Egg Boy.
So now that we're mentioning him, I will put in the description for this episode links to his Spotify's. Because he has two. He has one that's his name, and he has one that's called Rate Date TBH Band.
Not rape with a P as in Pokemon, but with a T as in Tokemon.
Yes.
Or tote bag.
So if you want to listen to those, it's kind of the same vibe as our theme song. Go check them out. Those links will be in the description for this episode.
Cool. All right. Let's just get right into it.
All right. Recap. Movie opens with a young boy opening a drawer, and he's got a Bible and some luchador figurines, and he pulls out a drawing. And this drawing is of presumably him in a luchador suit, and on the back of the cape, there's a cross. So we are shown very early on in the film that this character, whoever it may be, is very, very into both the luchador wrestling and his faith. Come to find out, this man is Ignacio. I don't know if he has a last
Ignacio.
name. But it's Ignacio, played by
Ignacio.
Jack Black, which I'm going to keep going in the recap, but is this movie racist? Because Jack Black's white.
I mean, I would just say it's whitewashing. I wouldn't say it's racist.
Because I was thinking about that. But
okay, well, in the credits, he's not Ignacio. It's not Ignacio. He's just Nacho.
Well, that's not right.
Yeah.
That's not his name. Anyways, so then the priest people, whatever they are, they catch him and they like rip everything off of him. And then when they rip the mask off, he looks a lot like Seth Rogen, I thought. Young little Ignacio.
Yeah.
But then he grows up and he's like making food, and the kid who's also in Hannah Montana, Moses Arias is his name.
Rip.
He's not dead.
Wait, which? Oh no, that's the other guy.
All right, I don't know what you're talking about.
That was from Jesse.
Oh yeah. Gamer Bois.
Yeah.
Moses
Rip.
Arias, who was Rico and Hannah Montana.
Yeah.
This movie came out the same year that Hannah Montana began. By the way, I found that out.
Oh, I did not know that.
In my research for this podcast. He gets some food, whatever it is. He's like, "Man, this food sucks." And then Nacho is like, "No, it doesn't." And he eats it, and he goes, "Because it does suck."
I think it comes out his nose.
Yes, and it's very gross.
Yeah.
And I think I support it, so that's why I mentioned
Okay.
it here. So that's how it begins, and then so we see that Nacho and his kitchen is not being held to a very high standard in this monastery or orphanage, whatever it is. So then at some point, a girl gets introduced, and she's like a nun, and Nacho is kind of taken aback by her, but he can't act on it because they have both taken vows of celibacy.
Encarnacion.
That is her name, yes. And so one day, Nacho goes to pick up some chips, and he gets jumped and mugged, quite literally jumped, by the way. And this guy steals all the chips, and then Nacho goes back, and then the next day, one of the other priests, monks, whatever they are, is like
the one that has the weird mustache,
right? Who I think may have been a character in Napoleon Dynamite. I'm not sure.
Well, we're gonna get to that.
But he's like, and then he's like, "Why is there no chips?" And Nacho's like, "Cause I got stolen chips." And then he's like, "Did you say they were the Lord's chips?" And Nacho's like, "No," or something. I don't remember exactly what he says. But then Nacho's like, "Screw this, Jazz. I'm gonna go be a wrestler, but I need a tag team person." So he goes and finds the guy who jumped him. He's like, "Hey man, teach me how to fight." And that dude's like, "No." And then he's like, "But we'll get money." And he's like, "Okay." So then there's like this weird training montage, and Jack Black takes one of the kid's sweats. And while the kid is relatively fat, I do not think that Jack Black would have been able to fit in the clothes for that little boy.
Or Concho?
Chanchito, right?
I don't know.
Chancho? Something like that. I think I'm about to sneeze.
Bless you.
Okay, hold on.
Chancho, yeah.
It's coming. It's gonna. Right.
What the heck? Wait a second.
Uh-oh.
That can't be right. Look at that.
I can't.
Do you see this? Look at that.
Maybe she's trans.
Yeah, but bro, what a glow up though.
All right.
Look at that.
Anyways,
and then
I don't think Jack Black would have fit in Chanchito's sweats.
Chancho.
But then they have a wrestling match and they lose. And Nacho's like, "Rats, I didn't want to lose." But then the dude gives him money anyway because everyone gets a piece of the pie, baby. So then he keeps wrestling for a bit, and he keeps trying, kind of going on with Encarnacion, but they can't do anything about it. And she's like, "Hey, wrestling's bad. It's all about vanity and sin." And Nacho's like, "Nah," but then she's like, "Yeah, it is because it is." And he's like, "Okay, unless the Lord is with you." And he's like, "Okay." So then he's like, "I want to go pro." So he goes to this party, but he can't get in because he wasn't invited. And then so he sneaks in with the band and sings a song about Ramses, who is kind of a dick, even though he's like the best wrestler ever.
No, there is no kind of Thomas.
Well, I was being nice. And then Esqualito, who is Steven, who is the dude who jumped Jack Black, Nacho, earlier in the film, gets in because he climbs over the fence, and he's like, "You are too fat. I can't get you over the fence. Sorry." And there's this lady who like tries to get it on with him, and I thought that she came back later in the film, but
nope,
she did. So I don't know what the point of that scene was. But then Jack Black sings that song, and
Ramses does not like to dance at the party.
And then he's like, "I'm gonna go pro." And then the boss guy is like, "Okay, well, if you want to go pro, you can fight in the ring, and whoever wins the fight gets Ramses." And they're like, "Okay." So they go. Then everyone finds out at the orphanage that Ignacio has been wrestling this whole time. And
well,
before like, "Don't do that."
Well, before that, him and Hector Jimenez, whatever his name is,
Esqualito.
Yeah, Esqualito have like an argument, and they break up.
And he's like, "I hate all the orphans in the whole world."
Yeah. And he's like, "I only believe in science."
Right. That is an important character trait that I did not mention.
And then they break up. And then
I skipped the eagle eggs. At one point.
Oh, that's right.
At one point, Esqualito's like, if you go get eagle eggs, then you'll get superpowers. And
This
then,
is during the training montage,
yes,
or is it?
no? It's at some
After?
point after they've been fighting a bit.
Okay.
And then Ignacio's like, okay, so like he climbs the mountain and drinks some eagle eggs.
Now he climbs a mountain, like he climbs a cliff edge. Remember, and like it's like in The Princess Bride. It's essentially that.
That's inconceivable.
Well,
Um,
he's dead, so
who is?
inconceivable.
No, he's not.
He died in the
Wallace
movie.
Shawn?
He died in the movie.
Okay. He's also Rex from Toy Story. If you didn't know that.
I did not know that. Yes, I did.
Yep.
Back to the recap.
So then everyone finds out, and he's like, "It's okay, I'm gonna win." But then he doesn't win, so he comes back, and then they kick him out. So he like goes to the wilderness, but he's really not really in the wilderness. He's just like a foot away from the town, because Esqualito's like, "I just saw you from my house," or whatever he says.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Hey, that guy who actually won Silencio, now he's injured by me, but I'm not saying that it's by me, but I did it. So now he can't fight, and now you're gonna fight because you came in second place." So Ignacio's like, "Okay, I guess I'll do it. One less hurrah for the kids, because if I win, then I'm like take them on a bus." And so then he goes, and he's gonna lose, and
Encarnacion.
Ramses rips his mask off. Oh yeah, I skipped the song. He sings a song about Encarnacion. He's gonna lose, but then Encarnacion and all the kids come walking in, and all the kids are like wearing outfits like his. So then he feels the Holy Spirit within him, and he wins.
Yep.
Defeats the false idol of Ramses.
And then they go on a bus.
Yep.
But,
and also Steven's there.
But they still have a forbidden love.
Yes.
Whoa, who's Steven? Hold up.
Steven's
Deja
Esqualito.
vu.
Steven is his real name. Esqualito is his wrestler name.
Oh, okay. Deja vu. Holy crap. I don't know what from. Have we done this episode before?
No. Which, as a matter of fact, I'm not even sure if I'd seen this movie before. I thought I had.
What?
But then when I was watching parts of it, I was like, I don't think I've seen this.
I watched this maybe earlier this year. I watched it relatively recently.
I never sneezed.
Within the past 365 days. You need to eat some beans, and then you'll sneeze.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, well, that's why.
All right.
That's why Jack Black did that.
Pickle juice will keep you from cramps. Grass makes you poop. Beans make you sneeze.
Yep. All right. Keep a tab, boys. All right. What do you think, Thomas?
Okay, well, so I'm going to start where I started.
Actually, take that. Well, go ahead.
So at the beginning of the film, I mentioned Moises Arias, the kid from Hannah Montana. Is like, man, I just want some salad. This food sucks. And then Nacho was like, no, it doesn't. And then he eats it. And then he's like, oh, this does suck. So I took that to mean, I was like, okay, so that's suggesting that blind faith is not always good.
Okay.
And so this is going to be kind of like an anti-religion movie.
Interesting.
But
okay.
Then I found out that this was based on a true story.
No, Thomas. Why would you do that?
All right. So this movie
is actually a biopic. For those of you who didn't know, from a luchador called Fray Tormenta, who was a priest, who is still alive, by the way, and he wrestled for the Lord in order to give money to his orphanage.
Yes, except the difference here is that Fray Tormento was the director of the orphanage, whereas Nacho,
he's
Ignacio was
just a guy,
the food guy.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, so maybe this is the opposite of that, and it's like fully embracing that religion is good and stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I think I can't argue that. There's another point at some point later in the film that I think encompasses more the whole of the movie.
Yeah.
But obviously the religion aspect is very prominent.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, so I took a different approach, and I said this movie was about your civic duty.
Okay.
Not voting, but rather, maybe I should say your duty as a human with a skill. And so I said, I'm saying basically, if you have a skill, then it's your duty to use it to promote humanity.
So,
or society.
In this film, Ignacio's skill would be wrestling.
Yes.
Okay. And I definitely think there's something to that. People, you were raised as a Christian in the church, right?
Yeah.
So, and I was as well. And there's this mentality there that everyone's gonna have these different talents and stuff, but you should use your talents you're, as people would say, and I'm doing air quotes to the microphone so you can hear them, God-given talent. You have to use that talent to spread the word of the Lord and like praise God and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so even though it's seen as vain, in the end, he is fighting. He's wrestling for the Lord and for the orphanage.
And I think that it's only vain because he's, like you just said, like he's not fighting for the kids.
Right.
He's fighting for glory or whatever.
Well, and there's a quote from Encarnacion. She says, this is kind of paraphrasing like I did with the Frozen episode, because it goes back and forth between her and Nacho. But the quote is, Lucha Libre is a sin. Those men fight for vanity, for money, for false pride.
Yeah.
And which is arguably what Nacho was fighting for initially.
Oh, I don't think there's an argument for that. I think that's totally what it is.
And then she follows that by saying, but it is not a sin to fight for something noble or for someone who needs your help.
Yeah.
Only then will God bless you in battle.
Well, and exactly like you said at the end of your recap, like he gets this holy power that enables him to be Ramses.
Right.
And what he does is amazing. So if you remember, he eats the eagle egg.
Which also, at the time of recording, this movie is on Netflix. So if you haven't seen it, or if it's been a while since you've seen it and you want to rewatch it, it's on Netflix.
Yes, very good. And he stands on the edge of the ring.
Jake said he stands on the edge, by the way.
Like, like the corners of the ring, and Ramses is like running away because Nacho threw him out of the ring. Like, who's the kid in Peanut Butter Falcon?
Who's the guy? I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I don't remember his name though.
Whatever his name is. Peanut Butter Falcon. I haven't seen it. Go watch. It's great.
It's on Hulu, I think.
He throws him out of the ring.
This podcast is just an ad for every streaming service ever.
If you haven't seen it, go watch it on insert streaming service. But he throws him out, and then Ramses is like, "Holy crap, I'm gonna run!" And so he starts running, and then Jack Black jumps and does like an eagle dive.
Yeah, he gets the eagle power
to the other side of like, not like the boxing ring, but the entire stadium.
Which that reminded me of one of my favorite shows. I think I might have mentioned it on this podcast before. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's an episode where like Mac, Dennis, and Charlie are like the Eagle Boys or whatever.
Oh, I think I'm talking about Trash Man.
Well, it's that same episode.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, and then they just like pretend to be Eagles for America.
And also Trash Man.
It's a good show. Go watch that show.
Which it's on Hulu, isn't it?
Yes, but not every episode. The
Okay.
blackface episodes got removed. You got to be
what about
super sneaky if you want to watch.
What about the first season, or the first episode of season 14? I think, where they switch bodies because the old man. Is that on there? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think that's on there.
Okay, well, while you're
The
looking
gang
that
goes
up,
black.
yeah.
It's not season 14. That was the newest season. I think it's season
okay.
12.
Anyway, so
Big
yeah,
fan.
so he does like the super eagle dive, but I think because Jack Black never wins until Ramses, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's super important. And then also he never serves good food, and he always messes up.
Well, he made salad that one time.
Well, I'm getting there, Thomas.
Never say never. Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
I am a Sith.
Oh.
But then like in the beginning, like all the stuff he does is bad. He does like the funeral for the guy, and then the guy wakes up. He's like,
To be fair, though, better out than in. Better out than in. To be fair, though, the other priest was not specific about what he was supposed to do.
This is true.
Like, that guy has influenza. Go take care of him.
This is true. Very true. But still. And I think that we see this kind of divide until Jack Black, like, finally decides just to be a wrestler. And, like, this is a struggle the entire movie. So, like, and I think that this kind of has to do with, like you said, God's calling. I'm just going to use the word, like, your universal importance, I guess. Is there another word?
Oh, that was 2 words, by the way.
2 words. No, it's
it's
universal importance.
For those of you keeping track at home.
No, it's a compound word, like snowman.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's 1 word. But yeah, like just what you're meant to be, I guess. And so because Jack Black isn't doing that, then we see that he's just failing at everything else.
Right.
But then he does start becoming a luchador, and there is a bit of a flakiness at the beginning, but then like you said, once we have this montage of him wrestling and all that stuff, he brings salad and like good food and all that. And then that night when he goes to the party and then he decides to leave or whatever, he forgets to get the food and stuff.
Yeah,
but I
so
think
there's
that
no breakfast.
right, but I think that is again like a failure of his universal duty. That's what I'm going to call it, universal duty, because he fails to do that, because he fails to be successful as a luchador, or at least get a fight with Ramses, then he fails at the other things also.
You know, I think it's a good thing that you landed on that word duty, because I didn't write this down, but there's a point in the film where Ignacio is talking to the dude with the bad mustache, and he's like, "I don't want this duty. I want better duties," or something like that.
Yeah. I think that's at the beginning when he goes to do the influenza thing, or maybe when he's back.
No, this is when he was serving the food at some point. But I think that scene is relevant to what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And I think I wrote that down. But yeah, it is, because he may be supposed to be a monk, but he's not supposed to be the food guy,
Right?
At least, or he may be supposed to be the food guy, but that's not all. Like there's a potential that's waiting for him that he hasn't gone through yet.
And you know, he's kind of by repressing the urge to wrestle and be a luchador for so long, he's kind of been living in denial this whole time. And I think that's seen in, at one point, he kind of gives this speech to the kids when they're like fake wrestling. He's like, "You should never wrestle."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he's like, and then one of the kids, it's like Chanchito or whatever his name
Chancho.
is. And he's like, "Well, did you ever wrestle?"
Because he knows at this point.
Yeah.
Chancho knows that Jack Black is Nacho.
Right. And then Ignacio's like, "No, I would never." And like you can see in the things that he's saying and like his facial expressions that he doesn't actually believe these things, and they are kind of like rationalizations that he's told himself throughout his life, thinking that, you know, as we've discussed, I think in the last episode, Shark Boy and Lava Girl in 3D, but we watched Netflix,
so it's not 3D, but it's in the title, so we say 3D.
Yeah. Hammurabi's 13th Law. Everybody, look it up. That he was trying to like speak it into existence, and that eventually, if he's told himself that long enough, then he would believe it. But obviously,
it's the opposite here.
That never really took root.
If he says that he won't be a luchador,
or maybe it wasn't awoken in this. It wasn't like reawoken in him until he saw Encarnacion.
Yeah. Well, and so maybe and I think that this may go to your anti-religion idea here, because you could probably talk about the repression of, you know, the self within the church, or at least within this monastery.
Right.
I assume they're Catholic. I do not know.
Well, the actual guy was Catholic.
I don't know if this is. I don't know if there's Mexican Catholicism. I don't know if that's a thing.
Well, it might just be. According to Wikipedia, the real dude was a Mexican Catholic priest.
Okay, so let's assume that they're Mexican Catholics. I don't know what like that certain sect of Catholicism looks like, so I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something also to that, but I forgot what it was.
Okay.
But it had to do with repression of like I'm doing quotes, unholy things, like wrestling, because it is vain.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to propose a question to you. Why do you think thematically that Ignacio loses the wrestling fights until that last one?
I already said it.
All right, why?
Because he is not fully within luchadordom. Like he's still kind of holding on to,
yeah.
And I think that part of that has to do with Encarnacion existing. So for all you Shaggy Goose Egg boys, bitches be crazy.
Because I think the argument could be made either way, that it's because Esqualito says he just believes in science.
Yeah.
So then, like, the Lord is not on their side because of that.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's there.
Or it could be that Nacho is just not far enough in his faith. Like, at this point, it's just that being a luchador is more of a distraction than it is as a way
Yeah, and
to promote his faith,
I think that there's something to that, for sure.
which I think would play into Encarnacion's quote that I brought up earlier.
And it's interesting that you are at any given moment, at any given point that has to do with religion, that you are mentioning the anti-religious side, but also the pro-religious side.
Mm-hmm.
They're existing together essentially, and I think that this can be found within the movie itself, between Esqualito and Ignacio, like, because Nacho is religious devoutly, and Esqualito is scientific devoutly.
Right.
But then also his parents were the same way. I think it was his father who was science, and his mother was
I don't remember.
Catholic.
But yeah.
Regardless, vice versa, whatever it is, it's the same thing. So maybe it's kind of developing this theme of, anti-religion and pro-religion, but deciding for yourself. Like,
Yeah.
maybe this is a very in the way that facts are presented rather than opinions. So it's not trying to sway you one way or the other. It is just simply giving you this ideology, because we do see that Esqualito and Nacho have this break, but then they do come back together.
Right. Well, and this kind of throws a wrench in that, but it also kind of supports that at the same time. Because I noticed that by the end, Esqualito, he's not like entirely religious,
Yeah.
but he does by the end acknowledge like the religious factors. Like, for instance, he prays before the final fight with Ignacio, and then obviously he's on the bus with him at the end, which I think would seem to suggest that maybe he's not like super religious now, but he at least acknowledges the existence of a god. Although it could be argued that he was only doing that for Nacho's benefit.
Yeah. And I gathered it that way.
That it was just for Nacho?
Yeah. Because I think you have this break, but then you get to the point where it's like, okay, I don't care anymore, like, what your beliefs are in that way, because of who you are as a person. That's what matters. And there's not like a lot of evidence to support that, but that's kind of one of those things that's just like super implicit, like, as humanity exists, so does this ideology.
Well, I disagree with that statement, but I'll touch on that more in a bit. Dang, I was going to say something.
Dang.
All right, I'll just go off of what you just said.
Okay.
All right, so that actually ties into what I think may be like the all. Oh wait, okay, yeah, I
remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the film, it's kind of like indicative. Nacho's character is indicative, I think, of how, in my experience, Christians seem to force their faith on
their children.
Well, that and just other people around them.
Yeah.
Like, one thing I've always thought is odd is how, like, Christians and Muslims and Jews can't really seem to get along when they all worship the same God.
Essentially.
Technically.
So
I've never really understood that, but the Christians, I think, more so than those, and obviously I don't have as much experience with the other two groups.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, keep in mind that, like, we're by no means experts in this field.
Right. Christians, from my experience, seem to, impart themselves and be like, "Hey, talk about Jesus, baby," more than, like, say the Muslims would about Muhammad.
What's that song? It's like, let's talk about sex, baby.
Let's talk about you
and me. Let's talk about Jesus, baby.
And I think that's prominently seen when Nacho's like, "You've never been baptized?" And he like sneaks up behind him and goes like, and slams his head into the water. But by the end, like you said, it's almost like they have this understanding that, like, hey, it's okay if you don't believe something different. I mean, it's okay if you believe something different than me, because, like, we're all human together.
Right.
And that is what I think. You said it's not really implicit in the film, but I disagree with that.
Okay. I thought you were disagreeing on, like, the I don't. It doesn't matter what you think part.
No,
but okay, the implicity. Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's the quote This is when. All right. So at some point in the film, uh,
Well, let me say. So I agree with what you're saying, but I want to reiterate. I do think it's implicit because I think that it is not something that is said even in subtext, but I do think it is just kind of one of those things, like as a human that we understand, and that's what I meant by implicit.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think it's like explicit also in this film.
Okay.
This is the I'm about to say a quote from the scene where so at some point in the film, Esqualito tells Nacho, he's like, "Hey, I'll get some guys to beat you up, and you can win, and then show Encarnacion that you're tough."
Yeah.
And Nacho's like, "Okay, cool." So Nacho takes her down to this place, but he's not wearing his robes. He's wearing
No.
like fancy clothes that he's bought from his wrestling money. And she's like, "Why are you wearing those fancy clothes?" And Nacho says, "They may have the appearance of riches, but beneath these clothes we find a man, and beneath the man we find his nucleus." And
Well,
so,
because he said we find his nucleus.
yes, and I think this scene is very important for the movie thematically, even though, like as you kind of pointed out in your rendition of the quote, Ignacio is kind of rambling, but there is a point to this because, like, within the cell, the nucleus is the center. So what he's
Right.
essentially saying is that appearances don't matter. What matters is what is within. And I wrote down the question, what is one's center? And I think that's kind of what you were talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
inherently in man. It goes back to the quote that I mentioned in the How to Train Your Dragon episode from the movie Logan, which is really from the movie Shane. A man is what he is, Joey. You can't break the mold. So I think at everyone's center, you have something. For Ignacio, maybe it's this luchador
Yeah.
talent.
Well, and I'm gonna bring up a DreamWorks movie because DreamWorks. Have we established that DreamWorks is our favorite animated studio?
I guess
I'm gonna say it
probably.
is. I'm gonna say it is. Is that in Kung Fu Panda 3, they pose this question about who am I? And like the whole thing is that Poe is trying to figure out who he is. And at the end of the film, he's like, I'm a panda. I'm a warrior. I'm a teacher. I'm all these things. Blah, yada, 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 yada. And I'm not sure what I'm going to go with that or what I'm going to like intertwine this with, but it is very different than like what I'm saying here is that at your core, you are one thing. And so maybe there is no definition to what one is, like you're saying, but maybe rather a what they do kind of thing.
Right. Well, I certainly think it would be a case by case scenario.
Yeah.
Like everyone's center is obviously not going to be the same, but it's what is at that center that makes us who
Well,
we
but
are.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not who they are as their center, but it's what they do as their center.
Right.
Because like who they are is extremely individual and impossible to pinpoint. All you can say is I'm Poe or I'm Jake or I'm Thomas, and that's who they are. But as to what their purpose is, right, may be different.
Right.
And so I don't know what you said exactly, but maybe it's not the core as the person who they are, but the core is their purpose. Like
Yeah.
their reason for existence.
Yeah. I don't have more to say on that. I do have other things I want to discuss. Do you have more to say on that?
I think I do, but I don't know exactly. Oh, yes. So on the point of like you have a duty as as your universal duty. Um and like I said, Nachos is luchador, but not for him, but for the orphanage or for the people, I guess if you want to
Mm-hmm.
generalize it super. What?
Yeah. I
Oh, I
was
thought you shook your
agreeing.
head no.
No.
And I think that this is super evident from the very beginning when we first see Jack Black and Chancho. Is that
Yeah.
immediately Jack Black has a follower.
Yeah.
And we can talk about Mom and Dad if we want to here for a second. And just
The movie.
yes, Mom and Dad the movie, not your Mom and Dad, which you still
Send us
haven't.
pictures of
Yeah,
your parents.
please do. Where I think I think it was me, but it may have been you. It was one of us. Where we talked about how it's the parents' duty to raise their child right
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I would say that it is part of your universal duty to be this role model that these kids can look up to, not only to serve them, but so that they can have someone to aspire to.
Yes.
And then so it's seen here in the beginning, and it's seen throughout as Jack Black slowly gets more followers. And then at the very end, when Chancho and Moses Cantina, or whatever his name is, it comes along with the rest of the kids.
Yeah.
And then, like we said earlier, this is when he wins.
Right.
Because it's not about vanity anymore. It's not about being a luchador. It's about
the kids.
Oh, this is what I am for. And now that I know that,
right.
I can put all of myself into it.
So maybe, I said that, like, initially I was thinking it was the anti-whatever, but then I was kind of, once I found out it was based on a true story, I kind of went away from that. So maybe this movie's really about, like, finding your divine purpose within faith.
Yeah, and I've been trying to avoid the word divine just because it does have that religious implicity. But if you want to use that, that's fine. Because I do think that there are elements of religion in this film, for sure, obviously.
What you said about role models is actually ties into the other thing I wanted to discuss, which is the character of Ramses.
I was gonna bring that up next.
Because he is described, obviously everyone thinks he's the best wrestler, but he's described by Encarnacion as a false idol.
Well, and by all means he is. At this point he is.
Right. As is what?
Is the best wrestler.
Yeah. But I think the description is very apt, especially biblically, because I'm not very familiar with the Bible.
Oh, dude, but hold on.
I'm going to bring up the golden calf. I don't know if that's what you were going to look up.
That's when Moses comes down from the mountain.
Yeah.
But there's also another one. You go ahead.
All right, so I'm basing this off of a painting that was in my church because I don't really remember the tale of the golden calf very well. But as Jake said, Moses was at the top of the mountain getting like the 10 Commandments, I believe. And then he comes down and he sees these people worshiping a golden calf. And he's like, what are you idiots doing? This is not your God. And the reason that's relevant here is because Ramses' colors are gold.
Yeah. Ooh, I did not even think that.
Yeah. So then I also wrote down, because of that, all that glitters is not gold. Because just because something gives the appearance of gold does not mean that it is truly, I'm going to say divine again because I don't have a better word. But so as Jake was saying, by the end, Nacho has become like the role model, or he's really the role model for the kids throughout. But he now acts in a different fashion in the end than he did in the beginning. And until Nacho defeats Ramses kind of acts as a de facto role model, even though he is like this false idol. And we see, throughout the film, number one, he doesn't have any lines, which I think is good. And number two, we never see him unmasked. So that adds to him being kind of like this mythic figure within the society, which I think was totally intentional and is a fantastic decision by the writer-director Jared Hess.
So it's okay, Thomas. You're not well versed in the Bible. That's okay. But there is another story about false idols in the Bible that I think is a bit more poignant than the golden calf, and that is the false god of Baal.
Okay.
Baal. I'm not sure exactly where this takes place. I know it's in 1 Kings. A lot of it is. But the prophet Elijah goes to the prophets of Baal. And I think that there are 2 fire pits. One that is Baal's.
Mm-hmm.
And then one that is the Lord's, God's. And so this place, like I said, I don't know exactly where it is. But this place is in a drought for like 3 years. And that's another story. But the one that I'm talking about with the fire, you know what? I think they got rain, and then Elijah was like, ask your God, Baal, to set this wood ablaze. It's wet, so obviously it doesn't work. And then Elijah's like, here, watch this. And he asked God to, light this wood on fire, this wet wood, and it happens.
Right.
So I think that is a bit more poignant because we do have 2 essentially characters. And so Baal would be Ramses and God would be Nacho.
Right.
And so I think that I think you had the right idea there with the false idol.
Yes. It's also interesting that story that you mentioned is also more relevant because Ignacio means being born from flame. So like that
Oh,
fire
okay.
symbolism is also relevant
Interesting.
there.
Interesting.
And that's I wrote that down for a different reason, so I'm going to go into that. But
Okay.
I think that connection
Yeah,
is doubly there because of that. At some point in the movie, Ignacio catches on fire.
Where's that at? I know what
It's
you're talking about, but
it's after his prayer questioning his love for wrestling. And so since I don't, this is shortly before the like exhibition match, I think. But he catches on fire. And since his name means being born from flame, I was wondering if this signified a rebirth of the character, because he's thinking about turning his back on wrestling at that point. And I think shortly after that is when he like gives up and moves to the wilderness.
well, and there's
Okay, yeah, and I wrote down this is also when it is revealed to the kids and friars of the orphanage that Nacho is the luchador. So it is kind of maybe it's not a rebirth, but it's like everything is revealed in this moment. So he's gonna have to change to adjust to this new this paradigm shift.
well, and a lot of there's a few Bible verses that talk about destruction of fire, and one of these is in Second Peter, I think, but I think there's another one in Revelations that essentially just says, "And the world will be destroyed by fire." And I think this is also mentioned in Genesis with the flood of some sort, like being destroyed by water and fire. But I think that's also, since we're talking about religion, specifically Catholicism / Christianity, with relating to the Bible, I think that that also might be, relevant here.
Yes.
That's all I have on that. I just
Okay. I want to talk about the music, but beyond that, I don't have like I've pretty much touched on everything I wanted to touch on. So if you have
double
something
check
else
and make
you
sure.
want to say before I go into the songs.
Oh, okay. So I do want to talk about Ramses some more.
Okay.
Oh, there is another point I want to make, but it's separate. Ramses. So I've been talking about the idea like of a role model and what you have as a duty,
Right.
and I think that Ramses might also be a figure of promoting a corporate agenda.
Oh God. Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say on that.
Okay.
But Ramses is symbolic of the failure of a role model, like, which sucks. Because
sorry, this is interrupting you, but it's interesting that one of the times we see Ramses, he's leaving somewhere with Silencio and like the two devil twins.
Well, I was going to talk about that. Yeah,
because that kind of implies that the whole wrestling thing is rigged.
Yeah, absolutely. But in that scene, and I'll use that scene, all the kids are with Jack Black or Nacho, and Moses Cantina is like, "Hey, can we get an autograph?" Hey, see?
Yeah.
And Jack Black's like, "Of course, Moses Cantina." And so he goes up and he like taps Ramses on the shoulder. And Ramses, I don't think, does he say anything in this entire movie?
No, because he has no lines.
But basically, Ramses ends up like shoving Jack Black to the ground all over because these orphan kids,
right?
I mean, like if I was famous, I would do it for a regular kid. But then like these orphan kids, they're asking you for one autograph, dude. Sure, I'll give you an autograph. Right. I'll even say what's up. But Ramses not only does not give Jack Black an autograph, he doesn't acknowledge them or even him, besides like looking at him and then shoving him
into the watermelon stand.
Yes, and then later he eats the watermelon in the fight.
Oh yeah, he does. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Which may have to do with like your sins coming back at you and like descends into hell.
It's
yada
all
yada
cyclical,
yada.
Baby.
Oh yeah. But like it sucks that Ramses is these kids' role models.
Right. Well, and when in this scene I wrote down false idols will treat you falsely. Ramses is rude.
Yeah, absolutely. And for sure.
And then right after this, I think it's right after this, Ignacio has the quote, "I wanted to become Ramses, but it turns out he's a real dude."
Well, yeah, and I think that this probably is most prevalent, at least on a very surface level, that like, oh, your heroes are not who you think they are.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But exactly, like, these kids look up to Ramses and should aspire to be like him, not only just in his wrestling, but who he is as a person.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not, and that's why he loses.
Right.
Because even though this may be Ramses' universal duty, he does not do it right. Like, he's not using it to promote society,
Right.
but rather take advantage of it.
And it's for his own personal gain.
Right, and potentially destroy it.
Destroy what?
Like the society.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so that's what I got for Ramses.
Hey, and there was another point you wanted to make?
There is, but I forgot. Hold on, let me see if it's in here.
Okay.
Oh, yes. So I forgot exactly where this was, but I was kind of starting to question halfway through the movie. I was questioning my reading, because from the beginning I was like, okay, this is what I think it's about. This is what I'm going to look for.
Right.
And so there came a point when Nacho was kind of doing it for the kids, but also kind of not.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of like losing a lot. And there were like the little montage. He was kind of like sad. He looked defeated. And so I questioned. I was like, okay, so this is interesting. Is Nacho doing it because he likes it, or because it is serving these kids?
Well, and in the description of the film, I think on Netflix, it says that Ignacio finds out that the orphanage needs money, and that's why he starts wrestling. But I would argue that that's not the case.
That's not the case. Well, I think it might be super like tiny.
Well, because I don't think that's. If he's doing it for the orphanage, he's doing it to get them better food. But that's also improving him and like making him look better.
Yeah. But the point of that questioning was like, if this is your universal duty, but it feels forced, is it?
Right.
But then, like, I don't know how to explain that further, but really simply that, like, this is your calling, but if you don't enjoy it, then is it? Even though it is promoting the best life that you've had so far, besides the fact that you don't enjoy what you're doing.
Right.
And I just had that question.
I think I don't remember the quote exactly. Oh, actually, I should have it wrote down on my phone. There's a quote from probably my favorite TV show ever, BoJack Horseman. This is from season 3. I don't remember. It's from the episode BoJack Kills. I'm not sure what episode that is in the season.
Oh, spoilers! Is this when?
This is Cuddly Whiskers says this.
Okay.
So like you were saying, is it your purpose even if you're not enjoying it?
Oh, is this the Buddhist guy?
Yeah.
Or is this later?
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
Okay.
He's talking about how like he won an Oscar that was meaningless. He dedicated himself to helping others. That too left him empty. And then he says, but sometimes you need to take responsibility for your own happiness. I don't know what to tell you. For the first time in my life, I'm happy. And I'm not going to feel bad about it. It takes a long time to realize how truly miserable you are, and even longer to see it doesn't have to be that way. Only after you give up everything can you begin to find a way to be happy.
This is when he's on that swing.
Yeah. And this is kind of like only like halfway applicable here, but I think it is definitely relevant. First of all, if you haven't watched BoJack Horseman, it's a phenomenal show. I think it's the one true. I think it's like real life, even though it's like a show
6 seasons.
Yes,
and a movie.
Even though it's about anthropomorphic animals cohabitating with humans, I think it's the most realistic TV show I've ever seen. But what he says about you have to give up yourself first, I think actually does happen for Ignacio by the end of the film, because as we've discussed, he's not doing it for himself anymore. He's doing it for the kids.
But then, like you said, like, and I think you and I both exist in this state where like we understand that life is pointless.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, on a grand scheme,
what you do is inconsequential.
Right. And so that's why it's difficult, especially for me. And I think that in this conversation, you was like, what does it matter?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, at the end of time, everything that you do will not matter. Even if it's trillions of years into the future, right? We're building towards this perfect society, but then it's all just going to end.
Right.
So what's the even point of that? And so like these kids, not only is it Nacho's responsibility to promote a better life for them, but it's their responsibility to take up that mantle, to accept what he's doing.
Yeah.
And so if they don't, then not only is it pointless in the long run, but it's pointless in the short term also.
Right.
Like, you're spending your whole life doing this, like Mr. Cuddly Whiskers, for what?
Yeah.
If these kids don't, take it. And I think that applies here, but I think that that's also further proves my point about Ramses.
Yeah.
Is like it's less likely for these kids to live a better life if their idol is an asshole.
Right. Yeah. I had something to say to add onto that, and then I immediately forgot what it was.
Nice.
So, sorry. But now I'm going to talk about some songs.
Okay.
Obviously, the theme of this movie is "Religious Man," which is a song that's like
I am.
Yeah, that song.
I am.
And lyrically, it's weird. I kind of had trouble looking at the lyrics, finding meaning, but I think meaning can be found in it. So if you would like to do that on your own, then go for it, because I did not write down the lyrics here.
It's a very good song.
But that is the theme of this movie, I would say, because it plays throughout at least twice, maybe thrice.
I think 3. Which Power 3's Baby, if you're a cinephile like us.
There's also another song that plays, and I'm pretty sure it's the only song in the film not by Mr. Loco.
Oh, yeah, it's the Encarnacion.
Oh, not that.
Oh.
There's
Ramses does not dance at the party.
Jack Black doesn't sing.
Oh, okay.
It's sung by Beck, and it's called Holy Man, which you may think is the same thing as Religious Man. But if you look up the lyrics, and it's funny because
it's Wholly.
No, it's Holy. But if you look at the lyrics and the way that it's being sung, it's very emblematic of the other song, Religious Man. But because it's not sung by Mr. Loco, it's sung by Beck, it takes on like a more somber tone.
Where is this at in the film?
This is when he is in the wilderness.
Okay, yeah.
And so I think because of that, it kind of serves the same purpose that I Need Some Sleep does in Shrek 2. Which, if you don't remember, that is the scene, the Mrs. Fiona Charming scene.
Yep.
When Shrek is
hashtag Shrektober.
Right, forever. Which is when Shrek is doubting his love for Fiona, and he thinks that, he's not good enough. So there's kind of the same thing Ignacio feels here. He feels like he's not. He actually, a matter of fact, he says, "There's no place for me in this world, Chanchito. I don't belong out there, and I don't belong in here."
Well, and this is definitely plot point 2. Absolutely. Because this is when
it's his lowest point.
It's his lowest point, for sure. Like, he's questioning. So for you not movie people, a good film is one that puts a character in a situation that conflicts with his current state of being. And every scene should have something that, again, conflicts with him. And so this scene is the culmination of all those conflicts, taking him to be a luchador, and then all of that going the exact opposite way. Because this entire movie, he's thinking, oh, I want to be a luchador, and now he doesn't want to be anymore. Right. So for his life in this movie, it's one way, and then it's down to one moment, it's completely opposite.
Right. And I think lyrically, this song encapsulates that. So it's fairly short, so I'm going to read it to you. It goes, I hear the voices and what they tell about heaven, about hell, about the life we know so well we had to throw away. So that stanza on its own, I think, is very indicative of the contrast and conflict that is within Ignacio at this point, especially because it says about heaven, about hell. Which
just
are two...
between the... dichotomy of living a religious life versus a luchador.
Right. And then the next stanza is, holy man, Lord knows I'm a holy man. See the flower open to the sky. See the eagle learning how to fly away. And the rest of the song, it just repeats, holy man, Lord knows I'm a holy man.
So this is interesting. And I'm not sure what you're going to say, but for me personally, and my parents might get mad at this, but I think I would not necessarily label myself as a Christian, although I believe in the Bible and God and Jesus and all that stuff. But there are times when I'm I question the existence.
Right.
But then as I'm doing that, I'm like, look, Jesus, I still believe in you. I just got some questions is all.
Well, I mean, if you've seen Men in Black, you know we're just in a marble
Yeah.
and a locker.
Mm-hmm.
How we're in both, I don't know, but
Well, Jesus is the locker.
okay. But so the song to me, by starting with what I said, it represents a contrast within him, and ending by repeating the same stanza 3 times. The Lord knows I'm a holy man. That to me suggests that by the end of this scene, Ignacio will no longer be conflicted. He will have clarity about his situation,
Yeah.
and know that he's doing the right thing because he is a holy man.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's fully realized until Encarnacion and the kids
No,
come
I would
in.
I would agree with that.
I think that is I mean, climax. That's what it's
Yeah.
called. The denouement's after.
Right.
I think that this stretch, this period between him going to the fight and then him winning is the climax here. And I think what you're saying is that entire process.
Right.
So I think that he may. I think it's that he accepts he's a luchador, or accepts that this is the right thing, and then when he wins, when Encarnacion comes in, he accepts he's a holy man.
Yeah.
So I think that he accepts what he is, and then he accepts that it is his duty.
Right. So that is all I have to say.
And essentially, yeah, religious man is essentially the same. But because it repeats I am so much, I think that it also points to like my whole kind of thing here.
Yeah, but I would also say that song by repeating that instead of like saying I'm a holy man. It's more about his selfish nature.
Yeah.
At the beginning, and then by the end, he's evolved.
Well, yeah, and I think that also, like you said, this is a more somber tune, and I think that it's more upbeat nature of religious man points to the fact that although he exists in this life, it's not been actualized for him.
Right.
And then that's where, like you said, this is where it becomes actualized.
Yep.
All right. There's a few more things that silly things I want to point out. Do you have anything else as far as like deeper meaning goes?
No.
Okay. So Oaxaca, not
Bless
spelled.
you.
Thank you. Not spelled like you think. It's Oaxaca.
Oh, that's like the town they're in or something.
I don't know if it's the town they're in, but that's where Encarnacion is from. She's from a Oaxacan monastery, I think. But I wrote that down. Shout out to Josh Scherer and Mythical Kitchen. They do a series called Fancy Fast Food, and they did one on the Mexican pizza from Taco Bell, which is Mexican, but it's not a pizza. It's a Oaxacan dish. I forgot what it's called. Maybe it is Oaxacan pizza, but it's not a pizza. Hold on.
You're not a pizza.
Well, if you've seen Pizza Rat, then you may.
Hey, I've got a question for your chat.
Oh, Layuda.
Is a pizza a sandwich? Let me know.
Choo. Hashtag Shrektober. It's called a Layuda. A Oaxacan Layuda.
Okay.
Not a Mexican pizza. So get educated.
I will.
I'm
going to college to get more knowledge.
So I thought this was very interesting.
Although I think college might be making me dumber, but that's a topic for another day.
I think that this film is very stylistically related to Wes Anderson's films.
There is a lot of center framing.
There is, and not only that, but there's a lot of like, it's not push in, but they're just zooming in.
Yeah.
What is that
dolly?
Called? No, it's not a dolly. It looks like they have like a zoom lens.
Well, there's a word for it, but I don't remember.
It might just be zoom in.
For
another time. But Wes Anderson does this a lot too, where he does that with the lens. He zooms in, and it might be a digital zoom. I'm not sure. I don't know if they used a lens. I don't know if they use a zoom lens or not. But so a lot of wide shots, where kind of everything's in center frame, especially when when Esqualito is eating the corn and Jack Black baptizes him. That is very reminiscent of Moonrise Kingdom and the narrator in that.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And then when they're sitting together in like the locker after their first fight, I think it is. That's also very reminiscent of just like the wide shots that Wes Anderson has.
Yeah.
But also the way that the music plays out here is very, I think, very reminiscent to The Life Aquatic.
Interesting.
Because there's that one song that plays that's like the Portuguese version of a Radiohead song, is it?
No. Yeah, you're thinking about Say Jorge's renditions of David Bowie songs.
There you go. That one. That.
But he does that throughout the film, so it's more than one.
That's true. But they kind of play the same way that Religious Man kind of plays in this.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of the same kind of like tone also.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of like just browns and greens and cyan a lot, especially.
Is Life Aquatic in the fishbowl?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know. It's right there.
I think it should be.
It's right there.
The movie?
Yeah, the movie.
Okay.
But
because
if you don't know, Wes Anderson also usually has one color for each film. And this film, although it does have a few... Nacho Libre has a few... It's basically cyan, brown, and green.
I would have said blue and red, because that's Nacho's.
Well, cyan is blue.
Yeah.
But Nacho's, all of his outfits, so the fancy one when he gets beat up, cyan. His outfit, cyan. And then like the walls and the locker are cyan. So there's a lot of these repeating colors. So I think very stylistically it is close to Wes Anderson.
Right.
And then if you want to talk about Jared Hess's other film, Napoleon Dynamite, it opens the same exact way.
With what?
Like it's like Napoleon Dynamite is like shots of like things that exist within the film.
Oh yeah, okay. I've only seen that movie once. So it's
okay. Well, that was Jared Hess's first film.
Brain. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
it was. He only made 3 movies. I looked that up.
And I watched a video about this, and I forget who it was. Oh, it was Wrestling with Regret, but it was WREGRET.
Okay.
And the guy was like, "This is basically just Napoleon Dynamite, but in Mexico."
Wrestling with Regret?
No, Nacho Libre. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because the guy is Pedro. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I'm not sure, but he was like they both have an awkward main character and a weird sidekick, and they both have another socially awkward love interest and lots of long stares and pauses.
How old would you guess Jack Black is in 2020?
50s.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna look it up now.
Correct. He was born in 1969.
Well, Jack Black's not his real name, for all of you who don't know. His real name is Jacob or something. Jacob Black, yeah. Thomas Jacob Black.
His name is Thomas.
Yeah.
Which I didn't
51
know
years, look at that.
Really made me happy.
Hey, 69, look at that. Yeah, there's one more thing I want to talk about.
Chop!
Okay.
Get through it.
So, if you remember, I said that Puss in Boots was Zorro's fever dream.
Okay.
Because he was Antonio Banderas.
Right.
But it also might be Nacho Libre's fever dream.
Okay. Are you just gonna leave us with that?
Yeah.
I think you should. Okay. I'm sad to say, Jake, nobody blew up in this movie.
Yeah, you're right.
No, it's not even bubbles.
Not even bubbles.
Not even a whammy
or
zanny.
Ice, explosion, or nothing. I don't want to give it a 0, though.
I know. I want to give it something because he slaps the corn out over the face.
Oh, you know what? There's another scene
that was an explosive
that
response.
I forgot about. This is true.
Get that corn out of my face.
Get that corn out of my face. But it's at the final scene, and Ramses hits Esqualito, and then Esqualito hits him back. But it's like a super wide like slap. He goes like, wow. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I didn't notice that.
He's like, I'll see if I can see it, if I can show it to you, but it's hilarious. All right, that's it.
So what didn't I say that like I
get that corn out of my
Frozen
face.
the lowest?
Yeah.
All right, so this is probably
and that had a 0.25
on par with whatever Step Brothers was. I would say.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say another 0.5. Yeah, I mean that's
okay.
So 0.5 out of 5.
Yep.
Movies are not good.
No.
I think that the biggest thing that we've learned doing this podcast is just movies are not good. No. Which is interesting because we love them.
They just need to blow up more stuff, man.
Honestly, like, is it that hard?
I mean, freaking The Irishman blew up a car.
Yeah, and that's Al Pacino.
Yep.
think about it. Oh wait, that's where our podcast name
Yeah.
came from. I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
shout out to the Irishman.
Shout out to the Irishman. Which, have you watched it again since then?
No, and I never will.
It gets better.
It does not.
It gets better.
It does not. I'm not sitting through that again.
It was better the second time.
Okay.
It still was boring AF, but it was better. I appreciated it more.
Okay. I mean, Marty's good at his job.
Who? Oh,
Marty?
Martin? Marty?
Yeah, Marty.
He's got huge eyebrows, though.
He does.
Which is kind of scary. All right. So 0.5 out of 5.
Yep.
What have we said this episode that I can say to tell them to tweet us?
Get that corn out of my face.
Get that corn out of my face. Okay. If you like corn,
But don't want it in your face.
Tweet us at Pacino Pod on Twitter. What they have there is Mexican street corn, which is great. You can also chop it up and put it in a bowl and use some cotija cheese, I believe, which is a very, 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 very mild cheese, but it's really good. Do that and send us a picture of that on Twitter.
Yeah, baby.
Any movie recs that you got, make sure you hit us up at pacinopodcast@gmail.com. If your video is longer than, how long is the video? 2 minutes?
2 minutes, 20 seconds.
If your video of your parents is longer than 2 minutes and 20 seconds, then you can email it to us also. But that's all I got, Thomas.
All right. Remember to drink your pickle juice, kids.
And with that,
Stout and sauerkraut.
Stout and sauerkraut. Get that corn out of my face.
You sound like Donkey when you say that.
Oh, what?
Yeah, you do.
No.